Hey everyone, my name is Adriana and today's video is about my life with bipolar after medication. I was diagnosed with bipolar about 5 years ago when I was 25 years old. I do have a whole story about, how I was diagnosed, what I was going through, what led to that moment. And if you want to hear more about that, I'll link it at the end of this video. But in today's video, I want to talk about, what life has been like after being medicated. I was diagnosed at a really crazy time in my life. And I feel like I don't know that I would have realized what was wrong unless things were as bad as they were. Medication, first and foremost, helped me get back to some kind of balance, right? And that was something I really needed. And it wasn't until I got to this balanced place that I realized, wow, how in the world that I miss all of this. And what I mean by that is how did I not see how my life was so out of control and so bizarre because of my mind? How did I not see it? But it's one of those things where it's you can either be so in it that you are fully aware of it, or you're so in it that you have no idea. You have no clue whatsoever. And it reminds me of this movie with Jim Carrey. I forget what it's called, but it reminds me of that, where it's there's no way for you to know because it's all that you know. And so I guess to kind of tell you where I'm trying to go with this, medication definitely changed my life profoundly. I genuinely do not believe I would still be alive if it wasn't for medication. And I think it's because I hit rock bottom that I was so open to medication. Because I remember when I was much younger, I remember when I was in this hippie and this spiritual phase, I really could not fathom the thought of people taking medication just to feel better. I had no knowledge really of how psychologically ill someone can be to the point that they need medication to level them out. I had no clue. I had no clue what was going on with me whatsoever. And so for years I had this perspective of the pharmaceutical companies trying to turn us into robots, fuck pharma, fuck big pharma. Meanwhile, if it wasn't for big pharma, I don't think I would be alive. So thank you, pharmaceutical industry, because you saved my life. In the beginning, medication just helped me get out of bed. I was working at this job that I wasn't really happy with, and I began showing up 30 minutes late, sometimes an hour late. I just really cared so little for this job, and I eventually did get the courage to leave. However, I don't think I would have been able to if I wasn't more leveled out a bit. So in the beginning, medication just really helped me get out of bed, and I wouldn't say it put a pep in my step. I don't think I was there yet, but it just helped me get out of bed. It brought me back to this neutral place where I felt this is my life, I have control over it, let's live it, let's do something today. I no longer was stuck in this pit of despair, which is helpful, of course. The longer that I went with medication, the more I would think to myself holy shit, how did I ever live without this? I have to say, it surprised me. It impressed me. It brought me a lot of relief. I would say the biggest thing that medication helped me with was that it gave me control of my life. And, I remember there was one day where I was still new to being on medication. It had only been a couple of weeks. And I remember speaking with my brother about it. And I remember telling him that before medication, I never felt like I had any control of my life. And he just couldn't wrap his head around that. To hear someone say I never had any control of my life. I'm my own individual person, right? I can do things as I please. I can go places, I can pick up things, everything that I do is usually it's within my own control. But I realized that when someone is unwell mentally, there's a lot of things that really aren't in your control. Like, just because you're the person doing so and so doesn't mean like you're really aware of what you're doing and of what's happening. So I would say first and foremost, it gave me control of my life. In the past, especially when I was much younger, I would remember just being a constant victim to my emotion. Like, if I was happy that day, I'd be so elated that like people would think I was on drugs, and that was before I ever tried drugs. If I was down, you know, I recall like crying in my room for like hours at a time. Hours at a time. Like, it was ridiculous. Like, I remember my mom like coming to my room and, you know, like, and hugging me and holding me and saying like, oh my goodness, you know, like, what am I supposed to do for you? How am I supposed to help you? How do I make you feel better? You know, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And I remember her feeling so hopeless and helpless, you know, because it's like, your daughter can't stop crying for hours. How do you help her? How can you make her feel better? So yeah, there are just really specific things I remember. I remember how difficult it would be to just complete tasks. You know, I remember how I would start one project, not touch it again for like a year. That was me with painting. Like, I really liked to paint. And I could do it for like 8 hours at a time, but like I didn't do it often. So I would say that's the number one thing, is that it gave me the sense of control. And it's something that, you know, 5 years later to this day that I cherish, because I'm not used to it still. It's still a really new thing for me. I would say one of the biggest struggles that I've had with medication is, well, I mean, you know, just the diagnosis alone helped me see and make sense of my youth, but I would say that the medication allows me to look back and really realize like why I wasn't able to do certain things that I really wanted to. I remember being in college and I really wanted to major in science. I love science. I was even in an AP science class in high school. And I loved it, loved science. I still do to this day. But I remember really wanting to pursue biology, possibly nutrition. You know, I wasn't sure. I got so stuck, man, so stuck with chemistry, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. But I was really easily dissuaded to change my course, and I ended up studying journalism, which is still very much of, you know, a valuable skill and a valuable degree, but it's not what I wanted to do. I feel like if I had the strength and if I had the emotional stability, I could have been much more, it would have been much more easy for me to fulfill that kind of desire, that kind of dream, that kind of path. But I realized at the time that I simply did what I knew was within reason for me, you know? And it sucks, you know? I definitely feel like I missed out on a lot of things in life because of this condition. You know, by the time I was 25, like I was already out of college. Like, I was done. Just now, just then I have control, like, holy shit. How much of my adult life I already missed. And I would say something that I have been experiencing ever since I've been on medication has been this like relentless feeling of not being able to catch up with everyone or with everything. Like, I constantly feel like I have to make up for all this lost time. And that's lost time because I was genuinely unable to really control what was happening in my life. Like, I remember when I was in high school, I wasn't really sure if I wanted to go to college, but I knew my parents expected me to, so I intended to do it. But I remember having like zero clue. Like, I had no idea like which college to go to, what to major in. Like, I literally asked my brother, like, what college should I go to? Like, what do you think I should major in? Dude, no clue, like zero whatsoever, like no idea, like just totally like floating through life, just trying to survive. That is what my childhood felt like. I felt like I was just floating through life, trying to just survive. I had really not much ambition. I had no, you know, goals in terms of career. Like my mind, I couldn't even wrap my head around that kind of stuff. Like I couldn't. It's crazy. I'm telling you, it's absolutely nuts. I would say the most powerful thing medication has done is, again, it's given me control of my life, something I've previously never experienced. That has been both wonderful, empowering. Sometimes it's a little bit sad because I'll think like, fuck, you know, if only I had this tool, if only I had known, if only I was able to treat this sooner. Like you know, I could think about all the things I could have achieved faster or, you know, or sooner. But it's not a good way to think. You know, it's really important to realize like, okay, this is where I am today. Like, let's work with this, right? So I try not to get lost in that. I think it's good to acknowledge it, but it's not helpful to dwell on it, because that will, you know, that will completely prohibit you from moving forward and doing positive things and helping you progress, etc. Something people have asked me in the past has been, do you see yourself taking medication like endlessly? And my answer has always been yes. Is it ideal? Perhaps not. But I have also come to see that there are just some people that require medication. And some of those people will require it like for life. I have seen what this condition does to people who are unaware of it, who choose to self-medicate, and where it goes untreated for years. And based on what I've read, bipolar, like symptoms of bipolar only worsen with age and with substance use. So I feel like, you know, if I felt like my life was already out of control, like I can't imagine what it would feel like when I hit like 30 and over, you know, like if I already felt unable to kind of manage myself in the day-to-day, you know, like what would life be like as like a 50-year-old, for example. Medication has been helpful. I can't see myself being off of it. From the moment that I've started medication to now, there has never been a gap where I stopped taking my medication. Something that people with bipolar are known to do is that when they feel that they're feeling better, they'll think that they no longer need their medication and they'll just stop taking it, like without telling their doctor, just because like they feel like it, they'll just stop taking it. That is apparently a very common thing, and I'm really lucky that I don't feel that way. I don't ever think like, oh, I think I'm good now, I think I can just stop it. I've never had that moment. I've never had a gap where I stopped taking my medication. I've changed my medications every so often, but I've never had a gap where I would be like, okay, I no longer want to be on this medication, like let's just stop. I think it's really important to look at medication as medicine. It is medicine to make you feel better, or at least to make you feel normal. I've had moments where I've thought, oh, I really, you know, it sucks I have to take this. I would like to not take it forever. But I've gotten to a point where I realize that I probably will need to take it forever. And frankly, I'm okay with that. My experience with medication has been that I will usually just go with whatever my doctor suggests. In the beginning, I didn't spend like tremendous amounts of time researching different types of medications. Because I would be aware of the fact that like if you think you're going to experience certain symptoms, like you probably will. You know, it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? I knew that the best way to find out whether or not a medication was effective was when I would just take it and see what happens. It would very quickly become clear to me whether or not it was suitable for me. And I will make another video discussing all the different types of medications I've tried, because there's been a few. But in the beginning, all that I took was Lamictal. The generic name for that is lamotrigine. And oh my gosh, like thank the Lord, whoever invented that medication, like thank you. You've changed my life in ways I can't even describe. In the beginning, that was all that I needed. It was the only thing. That's changed over time, but you know, to think about like where I was and then where it got me, oh my God, you know, truly, like I truly had hit rock bottom, and this medication just totally brought me back to life. It was unbelievable. Unbelievable. I still take it today. Overall, I would say that medication has allowed me to understand myself, the challenges that I will face and the challenges that I have faced. It's helped me make sense of my failures in the past. And I do believe that even my family has seen a tremendous shift in my demeanor. Even though I was really not aware of it at the time, like I do remember, you know, a little bit of what it was like being younger and seeing my parents like endlessly worried and overwhelmed and, you know, just kind of like terrified about like, you know, where's this girl going to end up? Like, what's up with her? Like, is she okay? What do we do? You know, how uneasy they felt about me and how worried, like, you know, all of that translated. I could sense all of that. I could feel all of that. And I know for a fact that they've noticed a difference over the years. Without medication, I don't believe that I'd be able to lead the life that I do now. You know, I don't know that I would have been able to live in my own apartment by myself, to be able to financially support myself, to be able to be self-employed. You know, that's a big deal. That's something a lot of people can't do. Whether or not they're mentally stable, it's a difficult thing to do, honestly. But I do have to say that medication dramatically has changed things for me for the better. I wish I had a more positive outlook on medication when I was younger, because, you know, perhaps I would have been open to trying medication when I was like 15 years old rather than 25 when it was at, you know, at its worst. So I think it's important to be open-minded. I think that when it comes to individuals with troubling mental conditions, you have to consider it. Like you have to consider it. It's very easy to just say the words like, oh, I don't want to, you know, I don't want to take medication. It's very easy to just say like, I don't need that. But you don't really realize what you need until you've tried all these different options. And before medication, I tried nothing. I was just so stuck on this idea, like, I don't need medication, I'm fine. Like, I don't want to be one of those people with all the pill bottles on their table. But I'm one of those people. It just is what it is. I'll just summarize this by saying medication can be really helpful, but you have to let it help you. What else should you know about medication? One of the things that I cannot stress enough is the importance of a quality doctor. Having a quality doctor is essential to your well-being. Over the past few years, I've received care from different types of individuals. So the first person who diagnosed me, he was actually, I believe, a general physician with experience in psychiatric care. I forget his exact credentials, but I believe that the work he did was overseen by a psychiatrist. And he did have his own schooling in regards to medicine, right? So he was the first person to diagnose me. Incredibly educated person, had been in business as a doctor for years, and I was really lucky that I stumbled upon him because he was a quality doctor. Moving on, throughout the past 5 years, I've not always been so lucky. And it sucks to say this, but it's true. You will get better quality psychiatric care if you're willing to dish out some more cash. That doesn't mean that if you have a low income that it's impossible to find proper psychiatric care, but I'll tell you this, it's going to be a lot more challenging for you to finding a quality person. Ideally, you should see someone who is a psychiatrist, as they're going to be the most educated in this field. The other option are psychiatric nurse practitioners, but I have to be honest, I've had incredible bad luck with these types of individuals. Usually, they will be covered by insurance. their appointment slots will be incredibly small. Like, you meet with them for like a maximum of like 15 minutes. I don't think I've had a psychiatric nurse practitioner that's seen me for more than like 20. It's just, from what I've seen, it's unheard of. For those that take like Medicaid, for example, they will typically just fill up their waiting room with people. Like, they'll book a bunch of different people in the same appointment slot, and it's crazy. And the way that they torture some of these patients by doing that is insane. Like, there was one nurse practitioner I went to see, and you could tell a lot of her patients were low income, and I was on Medicaid because I was self-employed, but I was just beginning to build my business, and so I wasn't making a lot of money, so I qualified for Medicaid. But, you know, I remember going into this waiting room and seeing just all the amounts of like people that are like low income. Man, I heard people talking about how like they've been sitting there for like 4 hours in the waiting room without yet being seen. Like, that just blew my fucking mind away. Like, I cannot believe that people are abused like this. You know, it's insane. But so, to talk a little bit more about what I'm trying to say, psychiatric nurse practitioners do not nearly require the same kind of medical knowledge that a psychiatrist does. So what you want to do is you want to find the person with like the highest level degree, and that's a psychiatrist. There's a lot more psychiatric nurse practitioners, but you will not get the same kind of attention. You will not get the same kind of time, and the quality with those types of specialists is just unknown. It wasn't until I got a new psychiatrist about a year ago that I realized I was taking a medication that someone with bipolar should have never been put on. And it sucked. It sucked having to get off of this medication and struggling, you know, with the withdrawals and like not being used to what life was like without it. You know, like, I went for years on a medication I should have never been put on. But it wasn't until, you know, I got a quality psychiatrist that I was able to find that out, and she was able to treat me. Finding quality psychiatric care can be challenging, and I would say the most important thing is that you do your research. When it comes to therapists, there's a lot of different options, no matter what your income is. But I would say, if you believe you have a condition that really needs to be treated with medication, where you really want to spend your money is on a good psychiatrist. That should be like your number one thing. If you decide to also go into therapy, do what you can with whatever insurance you have, because paying out of pocket for like a psychiatrist and a therapist, that can be incredibly costly. So the kind of care that you get will really depend on the amounts of research that you do and looking into what is really going to be most available to you. There are some websites that I recommend, like ZocDoc.com is a great website. Another great resource is Psychology Today. That's a great place to look for both therapists and psychiatrists. So be sure to look at all of your options and be mindful of the fact that a psychiatric nurse practitioner might not always be the best choice. I found they've been helpful if you're just trying to like maintain a certain medication regimen, but in terms of like diagnosing and helping you treat certain symptoms, I don't know that they're the most fit for that. Again, like, they don't see patients for a long period of time. To genuinely, to be able to sit there and to study the individual and to really hear them out. When I first found my new psychiatrist, we sat together for 2 hours. That was like the initial consultation. We sat for like 2 hours and we talked about everything. At least an hour is required for someone to genuinely get an understanding of like where your head is really at, like what's going on inside here. You know, to sit in a room with someone for like 15 minutes, sometimes less, it's rarely gonna be effective. So that's the one thing I think you should keep in mind. Well, that's all that I have for you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you found this video to be insightful. If you have any kinds of questions regarding medication, feel free to leave a comment below. But do please keep in mind, I am not a doctor, so there's a limit to what I can, answer. If mental health is something that interests you, be sure to hit subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy. Bye.